it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy, feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz engaged in a heated debate/interview, which mostly covered Ted Cruz's ties to Israel and the war between Israel, Iran, and the United States ramping up. This is really an example of don't shoot the messenger, because I view Ted Cruz and Tucker Carlson as two of the biggest weasels in politics today. That said, the way Tucker Carlson handled this debate and interview was beautiful. And so I want to show you some clips to show you what I mean. We're going to check out these clips of Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz. I will share my thoughts as well. Let's get into it together.
Do you think that it's just interesting because what you're now describing in a very defensive way, I will say, is foreign influence over our politics?
No.
And you began, and it's so transparently obvious to everybody. I don't know why you would be embarrassed of it. You've said that you are sincerely for Israel. I believe you. I don't think you have some weird agenda. You seem to be sincere.
By the way, Tucker, it's a very weird thing. The obsession with Israel. When we're talking about foreign countries,
it's hardly an obsession.
You're not talking about Chinese. You're not talking about Japanese. You're not talking about the Brits. You're not talking about the French. The question, what about the Jews? What about the Jews?
Oh, I'm an anti-Semite now. Senator,
you're asking the questions, Tucker. You're asking, why are the Jews controlling our foreign policy?
Senator,
that's what you just asked.
Hardly saying that. And I have
That is exactly what you just said.
Well, actually, I can speak for myself and tell you what I am saying.
Good.
On behalf not simply of myself, but on my many Jewish friends who would have the same questions, which is to what extent, it's interesting you're trying to derail my questions by calling me an anti-Semite, which you are.
I did not.
Of course you are. And rather than be honorable enough to say it right to my face, you are in a sleazy, feline way implying it, or just asking questions about the Jews. I'm not asking questions about the Jews. There's nothing to do with Jews or Judaism. It has to do with the foreign government.
Isn't Israel controlling our foreign policy? That's not about the Jews.
You said, I'm asking you.
And by the way, you're the one that just called me, I think, a sleazy feline. So let's be clear.
It's sleazy to imply that I'm an anti-Semite, which you just did.
No, I just said, why is that the only question you're asking? You answer. Give me another reason. If you're not an anti-Semite, give me another reason why the obsession is Israel.
I am in no sense obsessed with Israel. We are on the brink of war with Iran. And so these are valid questions.
But you're not asking about Iran.
If I can finish, you asked me why I'm obsessed with Israel.
Yep.
3 minutes after telling me that when you first ran for Congress, you elucidated one of your main goals, which is to defend Israel.
Yes.
And I'm the one who's obsessed with Israel. I don't see a lawmaker's job as defending the interests of a foreign government, period. Okay. Any government, including the ones that my ancestors come from. So that's my position. That does not make me an anti-Semite. And shame on you for suggesting otherwise. And I mean that. How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who claims
anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. If you really believe that...
We're carrying out military strikes today.
You said Israel was.
Right, with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them.
Well, you're breaking news here because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity.
We're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them.
You just said we were.
We are supporting Israel.
High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
And I love the comment from JoJo from Jurors who shared this particular clip. Is it possible to absolutely loathe Tucker Carlson and enjoy the F out of watching him destroy Ted Cruz at the same time asking for a friend? And I agree with her sentiment there. You know, we don't see this kind of questioning of politicians on CNN or MSNBC or ABC, CBS, any of the networks. Tucker Carlson throughout this, and it's well over an hour long. It's worth watching the entire thing. He doesn't let Ted Cruz off the hook. Tucker Carlson keeps questioning Ted Cruz, keeps pushing on these instead of, normally a guy like Ted Cruz would just deflect and the interviewer would just move on to something else. But Tucker Carlson doesn't do that, which I think is really important. In terms of the first clip that I showed there, where Ted Cruz is saying to Tucker Carlson that he's obsessed with Israel. Oh, you're obsessed with Israel. And Tucker Carlson says, you're the one who ran on one of your key goals being to defend Israel. Think about a politician saying that about any other country. He says, you're not, to Tucker Carlson, you're not, you're not talking about England or Japan or China or France. Imagine if a politician, if Bernie Sanders said, or AOC said, one of my main goals in running for Congress was to protect France or to protect China. People would be like, you're a communist. You should be run out of the country. But how insane is it that Ted Cruz says that protecting Israel is one of his main goals? Now, I have nothing against the people of Israel. They're perfectly fine people. But when these MAGA people claim to be America first, and Ted Cruz, he doesn't say it right in this clip, but he claims to be America first, how does defending another country and fighting for another country's government make you America first? And in terms of Tucker Carlson, I don't know if he's an anti-Semite, but being critical of Israel's government and questioning whether or not the United States should be involved in this war with Iran does not make you an anti-Semite. Tucker Carlson might be, but people are allowed to question Israel, or should be allowed to question Israel, but that doesn't mean that they are against the Israeli people. If you said, I don't like England's government, or I don't like France's government, and I'm critical of them, nobody would say, well, you hate English people or you hate French people. It's just insane. So one more clip that I want to show you here. Speaking of insane.
Growing up in Sunday school, I was taught from the Bible, those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. And from my perspective, I want to be on the blessing side of things.
Of those who bless the government of Israel?
Those who bless Israel is what it says. It doesn't say the government of, it says the nation of Israel. So that's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my... You pull out the phone and use it.
It's in Genesis. But so you're quoting a Bible phrase. You don't have context for it. And you don't know where in the Bible it is, but that's like your theology? I'm confused. What does that even mean?
Tucker.
I'm a Christian. I want to know what you're talking about.
Okay. Where does my support for Israel come from? Number one, because biblically we're commanded to support Israel. But number two...
Hold on. Hold on. You're a senator, and now you're throwing out theology, and I am a Christian, and I am allowed to weigh in on this. We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And
what does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important. Are you kidding? This is a majority Christian country.
Define Israel? Do you not know what Israel is? That would be the country you've asked like 49 questions about.
So that's what Genesis, that's what God is talking about.
The nation of Israel, yes.
And so is that the current borders, the current leadership? He's talking about the political entity called Israel?
He's talking about the nation of Israel. Yeah, nations exist, and he's discussing a nation. A nation was the people of Israel.
Is the nation God's referring to in Genesis, is that the same as the country run by Benjamin Netanyahu right now?
Yes.
It is. Okay.
And by the way, it's not run by Benjamin Netanyahu as a dictator. It's a democratic country that elected...
He's the prime minister.
Right.
What?
But just like... America is the country run by Donald Trump. No, actually, the American people elected Donald Trump. The same principle
is silly. I'm talking about the political entity of modern Israel.
Yes, and that is
You believe
Israel.
That's what God was talking about in Genesis.
I do, but
that country's existed since when?
For thousands of years. Now, there was a time when it didn't exist, and then it was recreated just over 70 years ago.
I'm saying, I think most people understand that line in Genesis to refer to the Jewish people, God's chosen people.
That's not what it says.
Okay, Israel, but you don't even know where in the Bible it is.
All right, so think about the insanity of this. The United States wars invading Iraq and Afghanistan cost trillions of dollars, trillions of American taxpayer dollars. We lost thousands of Americans in those wars. Thousands more were destroyed for life. They lived, but they lost limbs, or they have PTSD, or any number of other issues. If we get into a full-on war with Iran on behalf of Israel, it's going to cost trillions more dollars. We will lose American lives, and American lives will be destroyed. And we're going to do that because of something that Ted Cruz learned in Sunday school. Think of the insanity of that. And Tucker Carlson says to Ted Cruz, is Israel in the Bible the same as the Israel today? And he says, well, nations exist. Hey, one nation that didn't exist in biblical times was the United States. So were they talking about that the United States had something that didn't even exist, had to, 2,000 years later, has to defend a nation described in the Bible? I mean, it's just nuts. And this is why we shouldn't have religious kooks like Ted Cruz in our government, because Ted Cruz would allow Americans to die to fight for another country. This isn't our war. Iran hasn't attacked the United States. They haven't invaded the United States. But Ted Cruz would be willing to let Americans die for that and use your tax dollars, which they claim we're spending too many of. And, we can't do things for regular people in the United States because we don't have any money. But they're willing to fork over all this money to Israel. It's absolutely insane. And again, I'm no fan of Tucker Carlson, but the way he questions Ted Cruz here about essentially where his allegiance lies, to me is excellent. And I would like to see more, do you say Tucker Carlson is a journalist? I don't know. But more people who interview politicians like Ted Cruz should be handling things this way. And considering how viral this has gone, maybe some of the journalists will learn something from this and say, hey, maybe I should be a little bit harder on these guys and I could make more money. But let me know what you think about all of this. Whose side are you on in this situation, Ted Cruz or Tucker Carlson? I know it's hard to pick between the two of them because they're both so sleazy and so weaselly. But that aside, to me, this was beautiful, what Tucker Carlson did to Ted Cruz. Let me know what you think in the comments. Make sure to give me a like and subscribe. I'm Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.